Welcome back. Today marks World Day Against Child Labour, and this year the number of children in child labour has risen to 160 million worldwide. This represents an increase of 8 million children in the last 4 years, with millions more at risk as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The International Labour Organization and UNICEF have warned that progress to end child labour has stalled for the first time in 20 years. So for more on this, I'm joined now by Thomas Wissing, child labour expert. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We mark this significant day, but it's just absolutely frightening to know that progress to end child labour has stalled for the first time in 20 years. Why is that?
Thank you. Good evening, and it's a pleasure to be on the program. Look, if we look at the figures, first I would like to say that the percentage of children in child labour is the same like 4 years ago. We have basically 9.6%, or 1 out of 10 children in the world being in child labour. But with the increase of demographics in some regions and with factors that have to do with the increase in poverty, inequality, children working in informality, indeed, as you said, the absolute number has risen a little bit from 151 to 160 million children. And that is basically because we have an increase of 20 million children, more or less, in Africa. We have 2 million more in Europe, 1 million in the Arab states. We have good progress made in Africa, in Asia, and the Pacific region, with a return of 13 million children, and in Latin America 2.8. So it's a mixed picture. It's not a hopeless picture, and I think we need to learn from the progress that the regions have made to see what works and how we can learn from that.
Yeah, I mean, this and the report itself say that children between 5 and 11 years are in child labour, and those figures have seen a significant increase. Now, just, from a very novice understanding, one does not expect a 5-year-old to be able to do much labour. So what kind of labour are these children actually placed in?
Look, 70% of all child labour in the world is happening basically in agriculture, and most part of it, more than 80% of this, happens in the family context. So it's basically children that are pushed into poverty, and they are helping to raise family income by helping the families with work, contribution on the farm, contribution on long household work, to get the family income together. That's the basic or the main chunk, let's say, of the explanation why such young children are exposed to being in conditions that are not apt to their morals or their safety or their health.
Yeah, and one would say that obviously a COVID-19 pandemic has further exacerbated the situation on child labour, but what do the figures say about sub-Saharan Africa specifically?
Look, we still don't have empirical figures because all the data we captured are from before the pandemic really started, but we did some analysis, and we think that indeed it depends very much now on the reaction of governments and countries and also business and trade unions, what really will happen under the COVID crisis. There is an opportunity to take this crisis as an alert, and to see if we're doing huge response programs in all the countries, why not invest more in the children, in the most vulnerable children, and in improving the rural livelihoods and the situation that drives them into child labour, addressing the root causes.
But is there political will to do completely away with child labour, as you're speaking about government interventions and the like, but are governments actually willing to come to the party and eradicate this situation, particularly on the African continent?
Look, last year in August, with the ratification of Tonga, all countries in the world, really all ILO members, 187 member states of the ILO have committed to eradicate the worst forms of child labour. The Minimum Age Convention 138 is ratified by 173 states, and that means there is an almost universal commitment and a strong will to really fight child labour, but it probably needs to have a refocus on the root causes in agriculture, to look into what can be done on social protection, because where we have social protection schemes in place, families are less prone to run into poverty situations. And that also means that less children will be likely to work in child labour, and they have a better opportunity to be in school.
Yeah.
If we look into Africa and sub-Saharan Africa, Indeed, the rate of social protection is relatively low. We have only 70% of the population in some sort of social protection, whereas other regions have much higher figures. So that gives us a hint of what more could be done. In terms of access to education, I think it's very important, not only in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, all over the world, to make sure that children can go back to school as soon as possible, as soon as the situation allows it, because otherwise there may be a disruption in education, and it may be driving them into a situation where it will be very difficult for them to find back into school once they are acquainted to be part of the contribution to the family income by work.
Sure, and very quickly, Thomas, before we leave in 30 seconds, what do we do as civilians?
Sorry,
What do we do? What can we as ordinary citizens do
I think it's very important to first to inform ourselves and to be conscious of the problem, to make sure that we talk with the people that have direct influence on changing the situation. The consumers have a lot of choices to make also on what products they buy, and I think it really needs a multi-stakeholder effort of everybody, governments, international, regional organizations, business, trade unions, civil society. We all must work together to end this. And it's possible. It has been shown in the past that we have made a lot of progress since 2000.
We're definitely going to keep our eyes on the story. Thomas Wissing, child labour expert there. On 160 million, child labour has increased. That is a figure that is sitting at right now.